The wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous, and the unfaithful for the upright. My name's Arthur, and I thank you for joining me as we share together what appears to be an obscure proverb. Proverbs chapter 21, verse 18. The wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous, and the unfaithful for the upright. Solomon basically puts people into two classes, which he labels the wicked and the righteous. The wicked are those who live their life for their own purposes, and the righteous are those who seek God and seek to fulfill the tasks that God has given them to do. It is a choice that each of us makes. We begin on the side of being estranged from God, but the invitation goes out to every man. Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ in the New Testament period. Trust in the Lord with all your heart in the Old Testament period, that people might turn and seek the Lord. And the promise in the Old Testament and the New Testament is that if you seek the Lord, he will be found by you, because he is not far from any one of us. We cannot see the air that is around us, yet it gives us our life. We cannot see the wind, but we can see what the wind does. And so God is everywhere around us, giving us our life, and we see the things that he does in the lives of others and in the world. What can be known about God, his power and Godhead, is seen in the creation that he has made. And when we pause for a moment to look at any aspect of this incredible world that we live in, we are amazed at the fine detail of balance there is that allows life to continue. But God does not force us to be righteous. It is a choice that we make, whether we shall love the Lord your God, which is his commandment, or whether we shall love pleasure instead. This is the distinction between the wicked and the righteous. Those who fear the Lord will be brought into the Father's house, and those who spurn the Father's love will be cast into the outer darkness. With that introduction, the wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous, and the unfaithful for the upright. It essentially means the wicked, the unfaithful, must be judged, so that the righteous can flourish. As an example of this proverb, let's consider the story from 2 Samuel chapter 21. David was king, and in his days there was famine in the land for 3 years, year after year. And David inquired of the Lord, why? And the Lord said, it's because of Saul and his bloodthirsty house, because he killed the Gibeonites. So the king called the Gibeonites and spoke to them. The Gibeonites were not of the children of Israel, but of the remnant of the Amorites. The children of Israel had sworn protection to them, but Saul had sought to kill them in his zeal for the children of Israel and Judah. Therefore David said to the Gibeonites, what shall I do for you, and with what shall I make atonement, that you may bless the inheritance of the Lord? And the Gibeonites said, we will have no silver or gold from Saul or from his house, nor shall you kill any man in Israel for us. So he said, whatever you say, I will do for you. Then they answered the king, as for the man who consumed us and plotted against us, that we should be destroyed from remaining in any of the territories of Israel, let 7 men of his descendants be delivered to us, and we will hang them before the Lord in Gibeah of Saul, whom the Lord chose. And the king said, I will give them. But the king spared Mephibosheth the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the Lord's oath that was between them, between David and Jonathan, the son of Saul. So the king took Ammoni and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons of Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah, whom she bore to Saul, and the 5 sons of Michal, the daughter of Saul, whom she brought up for Adriel, the son of Barzillai the Meholite. And he delivered them into the hands of the Gibeonites, and they hanged them on the hill before the Lord. So they fell, all 7 together, and were put to death in the days of the harvest, in the first days in the beginning of the barley harvest. Rizpah took sackcloth and spread it for herself on the rock, from the beginning of harvest until the late rains poured on them from heaven. And she did not allow the birds of the air to rest on them by day, nor the beasts of the field by night. David was told what Rizpah, the concubine of Saul, had done, and he took the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from the men of Jabesh-Gilead, who had stolen them from the street of Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them, and the Philistines had struck down Saul in Gilboa. So he brought up the bones of Saul and the bones of Jonathan his son from there, and they gathered the bones of those who had been hanged, and buried the bones of Saul and Jonathan his son in the country of Benjamin in Zelah, in the tomb of Kish his father. So they performed all that the king commanded. After that, the Lord heeded the prayer for the land. The point in this story is a grave misjustice had been performed by King Saul against the people of Gibeon. He was king, he had a responsibility to honour the contract which said that they were protected, but he sought to get rid of them, kill them off. And God initiates action to cause this wrong to be righted, for people must keep their word. And so the Lord forced the issue by withholding the rain for 3 years. This matter had to be dealt with, otherwise it would remain as a principle that these minority groups could be persecuted and should be killed and should be driven out of Israel. The Lord withheld the rain to force David's hand to deal with the matter. And so he consulted the Gibeonites. They didn't want money. They didn't even want vengeance. But something had to be done. And there was no particular living person that they could judge. Saul, who was responsible, was already dead. But they asked that 7 descendants of Saul be made accountable. Now when David chose those 7, he was very careful about the ones that he chose. He did not choose Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, because Jonathan was a righteous man, and Mephibosheth was a righteous man. He chose the 2 sons of Rizpah, Saul's concubine, and the 5 sons of Michal, his wife, that she bore to another man. Michal had disapproved of David, therefore she had rejected God's agenda for herself, and her 5 sons paid the penalty. These were held accountable for the sin of Saul, and it was only after this judgment was made, the matter was dealt with, and the people understood that when they had made a covenant, God expected them to keep the covenant that they had made, even though it was with Gibeonites who were not Israelites, that God heeded the prayer for the land to be healed. But the sequel is also interesting. Rizpah, the mother of 2 of those who were hanged, was greatly distressed at the loss of her sons, and mounts her own small protest, laying sackcloth on a rock and preventing the birds from coming. And David acknowledges this also, that justice had not been done with respect to Saul. When the Philistines had killed Saul, they had taken his head, but the people of Jabesh-Gilead had rescued his bones. Now David brings his bones back to the tomb of Saul's father, Kish, and buries them with the bones of Jonathan and with the bones of these 7 men who died for his sin, and so acknowledges the good as well as the bad of King Saul. So the proverb that Solomon has given us, which seems to be demonstrated in this story of David and the Gibeonites, was, "The wicked shall be a ransom for the righteous, and the unfaithful for the upright." And it essentially means that the wicked must be judged for their sin, so that the righteous can flourish.